What's going on? Welcome to the Shredcast. This is episode 25, but we're just going to call it like part 23.2 or episode 23 part 2 because if you haven't already, I highly recommend that you go watch episode 23 where Temp and I go over like a pre-beta analysis of what we expect from the beta and the build of the game of where it was at the time. And since the beta is past and we kind of got a feel of how the final build is going to be. Now, I know that the beta is not the final build and you can definitely tell it's not the final build, but it kind of gives us an idea of how things are going to play and feel and the overall meta of the game. And a lot has changed also since the recent combat cast as well, because we saw a lot more complex mechanics from a lot of different characters other than the ones that we got to play in the beta. And Temp has a lot to say the least. And so Temp, thanks for coming. Appreciate it. He was really excited to do this one because he has a lot to say and he still refuses to show his face. So for now, he is still a Tomberry. And Temp, what's going on, man?
Yeah, good to be here, man. I'm doing good. How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm doing fantastic, dude. I'm so glad it's Friday.
Yeah, this is.
Oh, by the way,
Friday's not Friday for me, but
we are recording Friday. This isn't going to air till Sunday, so just let you know. Sorry, I said Friday. This isn't airing till Sunday.
So, well, it's Friday for like 15 more minutes. Well, in the Central Time Zone.
Oh yeah, I was going to say I'm Pacific Standard Time, so yeah. But anyway,
California cats.
So, Temp, tell us about the beta.
So before the beta, I was watching as much footage as I could. And I played the stress test. And I went into the beta thinking that I really don't know what to think about this game yet. But I played about 153 matches in the previous beta this past weekend. And I can say with full conviction, I don't really know what to think yet. So we're going to really get a final answer once we have all the cameos. But right now, in the current beta, there really was only two ways to play the game, in my opinion. One was with Kano's ambush, or two with Frost's sort of like really beefy neutral game. And you kind of had to commit to one of those two styles right now. Because in my opinion, if you have a Frost assist and you want to play like strong vanilla offense, MK12 isn't really built for that. Because if you block your opponent's string and you're at advantage, they can generally still down one you if you go for a high string. And a lot of your best offense is locked behind highs. So I was finding, even when it was my turn, I had to do sort of like this rock, scissors, paper meta to really access my really good strings. And that's where all my confirms are. So,
let me chime in there because that was one of my biggest gripes on my previous video was there was just way too many highs with almost every single character out there. And I played a lot of Lee Mei, mostly Katana, but even I checked out like, Sub-Zero and Liu Kang. Kenshi is a totally different. He's a totally different beast altogether. But for the most part, it was just every single combo string started out with a high, and every kind of jab or anything was a high, and that's why. Although I played her a lot, I don't think I'm going to play Lee Mei once the final build, once the game is released, because I felt like Lee Mei was just boring. And a lot of it had to do is that you can either play footies and then do a forward 2-1, or if you have someone like right there in your face, the only option that you have to start your turn was 4-3. And that was really it, because that was the only mid and safe combo starter. It's like, that's why I kind of felt boring, because she literally had like one move, like one or two starters.
Yeah, so I'm mostly on the same page. I thought Lee Mei was extremely basic, which is not extremely disappointing.
No, not at all.
But it doesn't
mean I didn't have fun. I had a ton of fun.
Well, it's significant. It's not trivial. For me, I thought they had the right idea with Kenshi, because I think all the 3D era characters should really be very sophisticated. Because each one of these characters had let me be careful with my words, 3 stances. They had so many
styles,
moves.
3 styles.
3 styles, yes.
Yeah, 3 styles.
And even in Armageddon, we only had 2. Her weapon stance was very sophisticated. And her mid-range was also very sophisticated. She's one of the safer characters in Armageddon, if I remember right. And I know Ketchup was echoing that sentiment as well.
Mm-hmm.
So for her to kind of turn into like Ryu is a disappointment. That's not trivial. And I'm going to try to compensate that with a cameo, but she's still fun. Like I'm still going to main this character on release. I still think
you're still going to main Lee May?
Yeah, I mean she's my favorite character on the roster right now. She's not the most, I'd say, gameplay fascinating character. I might give that to Sindel at the moment, but I still have not seen the Sindel footage. But everything I'm hearing sounds pretty interesting.
I think Sindel. Sindel's gameplay, I don't find it too complex. I find her mechanics and her options very complex. So when the zoning, the mid range, and the pressure that she has, I feel like she is very straightforward. But she has things like her anti-combo breaker. She can steal your cameo for a time being, or she can stop your cameo from being used. It's like she has these interesting options, but as far as like complex moveset, I would give that to Kenshi at the moment.
I think Kenshi is the most setup intensive character. Like I said, I haven't seen this
Ashura as well. Ashura needs a lot of setup, especially with the two stances.
Maybe. So, well, I think her mid-range is so good, though. I think with a little bit of resource management, you could probably play like a very Rose-esque game with Ashura, but that's a guess, though. That could be different when the game comes out. Yeah. Or I could be misunderstanding Ashura as well. But I think with Sindel, even though I haven't seen the footage, the talk around the water cooler is that she has her flight cancels back, and they are true block strings.
Oh, bro. They are. It's straight up. It's Katana's MKX Flutter. Is literally what it is. You can use her hover. I forgot what it's called.
Her flight?
Yeah, her flight, but 16-bit called it something else. I forgot. But it's essentially her aerial hover. But what you can do is there's a setup to where it's a low and then this uppercut, but you can cancel it into the hover, and then from the hover you can cancel. You can or you have an option to do a mid. I believe it's a mid or a high. I'm not sure, but it's like it literally was like Katana's Flutter from MKX, and it's like it's.
Well, Sindel had this in MK9 too. I actually made a video about this. She had
these
really
I've seen
nice plus. Yeah, she's honestly the most interesting character in MK9 in my opinion. I think she's so cool.
I thought it was really cool that you actually did that video, and I was really not at all surprised that you would do that because you tend to find beauty where there is not. And Temp is the master at finding the diamond in the rough, and Sindel is definitely that. Now, a lot of people didn't play Sindel, and the people who did play Sindel in MK9 were typically zoners. But here comes Temp being like, no, Sindel is actually probably the most balanced character in the entire game. Unfortunately, MK9 consists of Sonya, Melina, Johnny Cage, Cabal, and that's like your four characters that you play.
She's a really good character that gets blown up by the top tiers very badly. She's kind of like Nightwolf in that respect. Yeah, but I think what's cool about Sindel is you can really play her any way you want, so long as you're not up against like a strong anti-zoner.
And that's what seems to be the case in this game.
Well, I hope this game is a little bit different, because the problem with Sindel and MK9 is you couldn't really afford to be wrong. Like Forward 4 was a great confirm and a great meter building tool, but if it whiffs, you die. And her instant air fireball, if you mess up the execution on that can go sour because you're doing that at all sorts of distances. Same thing with her flight pressure. You don't want to mess that up because it doesn't put you in a great situation. So you really have to have her execution down. And I don't think anyone liked the character enough to really put in the work.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, kind of talking what we were talking about before was that I was talking about how I used to think that the pros were just like, okay, when developing combos and game strategy, that I always thought the pros would be like, oh, well, this is +5 and this is +7, and I know if this person hits me with a -7, but it's forward, because it has pushback on it, that it's like they're going to be like these, like these pretty much like nerds who know how all this stuff, and it turns out they're not. And you were like, yeah, in the San Antonio scene, guys were just like, oh, I like Katana because she has fans. And
pretty much, yeah.
And I was the same way with Sindel. That's because I was just like, dude, her scream sounds so cool. Okay, I'm I like the hair thing. I'm gonna play Sindel. That's how I used to be in MK9.
Yeah,
So,
it's funny too
and other
because
reasons.
well, a lot of those people who just weren't big on like talking the numbers, a lot of them were better than me. Like a lot of them were actually stronger players, but they did not really like enjoy talking about like dry like paper fighting. It just wasn't their thing.
Dab said something on the episode before this. He did say a lot of players have this nasty habit of thinking too much, and sometimes you just got to do. So
yeah,
in his own words, really, but that's what he meant.
Yeah, with risk reward in MK, you can't really like you can't play a purely safe MK game. That's definitely true with MKX, right?
Yeah. I have that problem. I've totally, because this is what will happen is if I get somebody in the corner, okay. And one thing I learned, I think Justin Wong said this, and I really took it to heart. And somebody else said this too. Is Michelangelo actually reiterated it? He's like, keep doing it until they defend it. So if you keep hitting somebody with an overhead, he's like, until they actually defend it, keep doing it. He's like, eventually they'll learn, but if it's successful, keep doing it. And my brain is just like, okay, I've done this twice. They're definitely going to block this again. So I'm going to go and do a low and or something, or like a mid or whatever, but I'm not going to do that same thing again, because in my brain, I'm like, well, if I was on defense, I would definitely not want, they've already done this twice. They're definitely not going to do it the third time. So
yeah, people really don't understand that with jump-ins. I think a lot of people have very unhealthy perceptions of jump meta. I especially see this in Street Fighter. I think people need to understand that jumping is a bad idea in general, but that just because it is a bad idea doesn't mean it's the wrong decision. Whether a jump is right or wrong depends on whether you have good reasons to believe your opponent won't be able to deal with it. I jump a lot in Street Fighter 6, and it works. But that's important. You have to have enough data to know if it's going to work or not. You have to be able to kind of sort of observe patterns in your opponent and see what they do on defense, and sort of do your best to measure what they can and cannot react to. And that's how you build your jumping meta. And some opponents you just cannot jump on. And when you accept that, you adapt. But if you can jump, you're crazy not to do it. I think a lot of people get the wrong idea about that.
Right.
But Lee May though.
I'm sorry, we went off on a little bit of tangent there. So go ahead about the Lee May thing.
She's not entirely basic, but having such an expansive moveset in Armageddon and Deception, it does feel like a step down. And I think with a really cool cameo, this character could be really interesting because her combo construction is great. There's nothing wrong with her lantern combos; those are really tight. But like I said, vanilla offense in this game just feels very poor. And I think once we have more cameos and better ambushes, Lee May is going to shine, because that's when you can get those really sick confirms. Because once she gets a combo started, she doesn't really need the assist. Like, she has what she needs to kind of get well, that's not entirely true, because if you want to get a lantern in the air, that is important. But even without the lantern, she still hits like a truck. You don't even need the forward 4-3, even without forward 4-3. If you just do like a very basic like string into EX Fireball, into standing 4, into special, that hurts. You can't get hit by too many of those.
That her EX Fireball is insane, and it does a lot, especially in the air. So
that's the strongest thing about Lee May, but also the most disappointing, because I think further into the game, Lee May is going to be defined by EX Fireball. That is her tool, because that frame trap is what makes her dangerous. I think without that frame trap, you have that really not great I don't think it's good. That forward 3 overhead, I think that is just a super gimmicky whatever tool. We'll see if I'm wrong, but the reward is very low, and I don't think the risk is worth it. But I think that EX Fireball frame trap really helps when you're in that stupid down 1 meta. Her forward 4, I think, is really quick too. I think it's like 10 frames. I'm sorry, her down 4. Her forward 4 is like 16 frames. It's not very. It's a good tool, but it's a footsie tool. You're not using that for your main offense. Her down 4 is 10 frames, which is very strong. I wish I had known that during the bulk of my sets. But that's kind of the issue with the game right now. So I can't use my best tools because it gets shut down by the down 1 meta.
Right.
And if I don't use my best tools and I win the down 1 meta, I just don't get a lot for it. So
Mhm.
without an ambush, without like a sector missile, that's always the example I go to. It's going
Yeah.
to be really hard to get Li Mei started. And I don't think this is
Yeah.
specifically a Li Mei problem. I think in general, vanilla high strings are just not very good in this game.
No,
And
and they're not. And one of the biggest things about that is that another thing I had the biggest gripe about was that they really, in a previous combat, I don't know if it's a combat cast, but they really pushed the whole like, okay, down ones are no longer going to be a thing, because in Mortal Kombat 11, it was like you could do three down ones and get away with it, or it'd just be like a down one, battle, going back and forth. But in this game, they said that it's going to be, I think they said it's going to be pushback, but negative.
they're very negative. They're like negative like 9, which is full punishable by some characters.
It is, and I'm glad that they took care of that, and I'm glad that they're doing that. However, because of the pushback and because most combo strings start with a high, you can just hit it again and you'd be fine. By the time that you would actually get to start your combo, which if it starts with a high, when it's your turn, that down one is still able to hit.
I have 2 theories for why they did this, because down one doesn't just shut down highs; it also seems to high crush throws.
Yes.
So it shuts down a lot of options. I think there's 2 reasons why they did this. I'm going to give the charitable reason.
Okay.
One reason is they thought the cameo meta was going to be very strong, and they wanted characters to have good defensive options. They wanted people to have like an out if the storm was coming, and it sounds like cameos are going to have that potential. That's one reason. But I think the other reason is that the NRS does not like mids. They are not a fan of mids. And to their defense,
it seems to be, man. It was like every character didn't have that was the one thing that I was saying that Li Mei was boring. It's not because she's boring, it's because she only has one mid string, which was her standing 4-3.
Even standing 4-3, I think is high. I think that's a high.
That was I looked at it as the only one. Just if you did a neutral standing 4-3, it was fine. If you did a forward 4-3, that's a low to a mid, but it was still punishable. Versus her forward 2-3 or forward 2-1 is a forward moving, but it is a high starter. So the only thing you really had to start any block strings or anything was her standing 4-3.
So this is an NRS thing. So it says mid. If you go to forward, if you go to standard 4-3 into the frame data, it says mid. But if you go back and go to just standing 4, it says high. And the reason why it says mid on the standing 4-3 is because they go by the second button in the string. The second button is.
I noticed that. Because I was looking at all that for the mids, and because I really like her forward 2-1, because one, it's forward moving, and I really wanted to use that. And that was another gripe I had with this, is that when you play the neutral well, you still get punished by long combo strings. So if I would backdash when Sub-Zero was doing his, forward moving combo, and then I would want to punish with a forward 2-1. The only punish that you really have in the neutral was the forward 4-3, not the standing 4-3, the forward 4-3, because it's a low. But because the forward 2-1 is a high, I would still get hit.
Yeah, it's frustrating. And I think what they want you to do is to use back 2 to check the down ones with Li Mei. And that's a 12 frame starter. So that won't even help you unless the character is more than -5. Right. If my math is right. But the problem is that doesn't really go anything. It goes into forward, it goes into back 2-3, which is a knockdown, which is all right. Maybe you get a lantern out of that, but the risk reward just wasn't in my favor to contest that. So that's not great. Back to being, I don't know why that is so slow. Anyway, I think that could stand to be 10 frames. So yeah, there's a lot of frustration on that end, but I think right now, this could all be fixed with like a good ambush meta. And to be fair, I will be clear. Yeah. If you use Frost Li Mei and you just want to whiff punish and check the opponent in neutral, like that's very powerful. If you want to play that style, that is a very great pairing. Yeah. I don't play Mortal Kombat, so I can like walk back with a jab and then whiff punish with like down. No, that's not. I didn't pay $60 for that. I didn't pay $70 for that. I want to rush down, and I want to also rewind a bit. So the mids in MK11 that everyone complained about was because of strike throw, but no one really understood the problem with strike throw. At least I have not heard a convincing counter argument to what I'm about to say. Not only did NRS misunderstand why strike throw was a problem, but the community misunderstood why strike throw was a problem. And maybe this is going to rub some people wrong, but I would love to hear the counter arguments. The problem is, like, staggers were very good, and that made throws very viable. But if you had just, like, not nerfed the chip damage and put meter gain in the game, there would have been good reasons not to strike throw, and that would not have fully colored the meta. The community just said, no, it's because of staggers. You know, as long as we have staggers, we're always going to have strike throw. That is not true. Because in MK9, if you do Johnny Cage's forward 3-3, back 3, that's 6% chip damage. And plus, that's a lot of meter, and meter is life in Mortal Kombat. So there were good reasons not to do it, but everyone blamed the staggers. And staggers are still in the game, thankfully. Lee May, if you can get the opponent to stop pressing down 1, she has really decent staggers, I think. But it doesn't matter because you're kind of... You have that down 1 meta to contend with. But the community got this wrong, in my opinion. I think if you had restored meter gain and you had restored chip damage to what it used to be, there would not have been this obnoxious strike throw meta in MK11. And I feel like mids became the scapegoat for that. And I don't think NRS or the community really understood the problem. Now, again, if someone thinks I'm wrong, I'm open to the counter arguments. Like, okay, well, what do you got? Like, you know... If your thesis is that even with good chip damage and good meter gain, that strike throw would have still been a problem in MK11, I'll hear you out, but I don't see good evidence for that. Okay. So, kind of what brought us here now. That's kind of why. It's kind of why the meta is. That's why vanilla offense, in my opinion, is just not very good right now in MK12, and I think that's a shame. I don't think that was a good move. And there's another problem we'll get into later, but even with the movement, I don't think that ultimately fixes anything. If you were to ask me what my biggest problem with the beta was, I would say I felt like I was constantly chasing people, and when I finally caught them, my offensive tools were not very good. That is my review of the beta in a nutshell.
I can agree. I mean, for the most part, the game was very neutral, not in fighting games terminology neutral. I felt like some players were playing like really rush down and straightforward. Other players were playing like, you know, just kind of casual, because all it was, you know, there was no ranked. It was just casual. But I do remember one particular set that I did. It was like this other player and I played like 10 games straight. He played Sub-Zero and I was Lee May. And dude, it was like he was playing like MK Tom Brady. He was just like, seriously, like defense. He was just, you know, backpedaling. And that's very different than all the other Sub-Zeros that I played against the entire time, because most Sub-Zeros were very aggressive. This guy was not aggressive whatsoever. And it was very frustrating to play against. But you're right. As soon as I finally got to that, he was playing Sub-Zero Frost. And so I always had to watch out for his Ice Ball plus Frost ground freeze. And I had to watch out for a lot of different things. But then when I finally got there, it's like, okay, because of the down 1 game, it was just hard to really do anything from there. Because I put the guy
What's that?
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Excuse me. Even if they do down, or let's say you read the down 1 and you get your offense started.
Are you okay?
I inhaled my tea. But that's cool. I have another team waiting for me.
But it sounded like you had a burp come out when you're starting that. So you're like it's.
Oh no, it's all Earl Grey in my lungs. But you bring up a good point though.
Yeah.
Like even if you get, let's say you anticipate the down 1 and you block the down 1 and you respond with a high string, like block the high string and you're right back to where you started. So it's just like, man, I don't want like the MKX 50/50s either. But I just feel like it's very hard to get something started without a very powerful assist. And now, granted, the game may come out, and we may find out that backdashes or even backwalking may blow up down 1 like really hard. We'll see.
I hope they do, because that was one of the things that I had. Now, I like backdashes in the game. The walk speed was actually pretty good, but I don't think the walk speed compensated with how fast the forward moving combos were. Because there's, you know what I mean?
Yeah, whiff punishing was really strange with Lee Makes. I usually whiff punish with 2-1 because the projecting movement was very good. But what would
Right.
happen is the 2 would whiff and the 1 would hit. But unless I make a read, I can't confirm a single hit into Frost. So that became very difficult. It was also like really driving me nuts. And I'm like, okay, fine. I won't rush down Liu Kang. I'll play hard footsies and I'll try to whiff punish. And I see the string react. I down 4, and his fucking string low crushes my down 4, and he gets a full combo confirm. I'm like, I hate everything.
Yeah.
That's what I have to buy a new PS5. Holy shit. Anyway, yeah. So
there's a wall that Temp has to fill the hole in. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a cast in my right hand. It's not good. So I don't know, dude. Like but okay. So it sounds like I really didn't like the beta. I don't think that's necessarily the case. I don't like the strategies I had to turn to be successful because my win rate was okay. Like I'm not going to win any awards, but I did all right. I think it was like 90 to 60, something like that. So I could have done better. And I learned a lot. I think what I should have done more is I should have walked people into the corner a lot more. When people were trying to play that sort of like, I'm just going to wait for you to do something and then I'm going to do whatever I want. I should have just walked forward and had them kind of like put themselves. Now, with sub, you can't quite do this. Because once you get that clone out, you have to worry about his Kano setups. And random Kano, such an issue. Yeah.
Oh, I was going to say, so it's like we talked a little bit about the difference in characters. Now, I don't know if it's you who said this, but were you the one who said like, okay, I'm glad that they have like 6 characters. That's fine for a beta, but they should have like 10 cameos. Was that you?
They messed up. Yeah, that is 100% me.
I
feel like the amount of primary characters they had was fine, but I don't think the 6 cameos they had were a terribly good look for the game. They should have had way more cameos. First of all, it's just a missed opportunity. Like,
at
you
least
could have gotten
different
so much balancing data on their end. I don't know why they thought 6 cameos was the right way to go, but just it really made the game feel narrow.
It was 4. It was only 4.
Oh yeah, 4 cameos.
Yeah, there were 6. There were 6 point characters and 4 cameos, and the 4 cameos, Kano was the only ambush character. So Sonya was an ambush, but it's like, you know, Frost was a summon, Jax was a summon. So yeah, I feel like there could have been, you know, if they would have, you know, switched up the cameos a little bit, I think it probably would have been a little bit more enjoyable.
Well, it would have been probably a better look for the meta because out of the 150 matches I played, I want to say like 130 of them were against Frost. So everyone's mostly playing the same meta. We're all playing like this, like, I'm going to check you with low ice, and I'm going to, you know, whiff punish into a Frost confirm. And yeah, I tried to push back against that, and I don't think it created for the best experience. And, I am praying Shujinko has some sort of ambush when the game comes out. If he doesn't, probably looking at Sector. But I think once people have better options and they're not sort of like shackled to this really frustrating down 1 meta, offense is going to be a lot more enjoyable. So this is not like a death sentence for the game. I did have a lot of fun with the beta. I think Lee May is really cool once you get her frame traps going. If you can get some sort of stacker going with her highs, if you get that respect from the opponent, she does shine quite a bit. I still would have made her a deeper character, but like, she's not bad. Like, this is I played Lee May, and after 10 matches, I'm like, I can work with this. I can make this work. So, but I think when everyone and their dog is running Frost, you get a very, very specific meta, and I did not love that game, and I did not love the answers I had to that game.
Yeah, I mean, Dab did Lee May Jax, and that worked really well for him, and he really liked that combo.
That's interesting.
Yeah, well, he would do like lantern setups. So he would throw a lantern out there, let's like have someone, you know, and he would whiff punish with the forward 4-3, and then he would do the quote dab combo. You know, that was kind of like his game, and it worked really, really, really well for him. I saw a lot of people, you know, Katana Sonya was a really good, but Frost, I felt like the only, at least with the characters that we had, the only thing that Frost really had going for her was her low ground freeze, and that was really it. I mean, the slow moving ice ball was pretty cool too, but I didn't find any purpose with her with the low ambush that she had. I wouldn't,
well, and I think you can even sort of like neutral duck her sort of like her flurry stabbing assists.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the corner, that orb is going to be very strong. If you can get that sweep or that knockdown in the corner, I think that's going to be a really, really powerful. Freaking Sub-Zero players would like Frost Cameo into orb. The dash and back throw me into the orb. I'm like, you piece of shit. But yeah, so that was really cool.
Oh, a lot of people do that. They throw out the orb and then they would grab you and get the freeze for it.
That's a classic MKX tactic with a Grandmaster sub. And that's really cool. But that's really not quite the game I want to play. And the whole point of cameos is diversity. So I think only having Frost, Sonya, Jax, and Kano was a really weird look for the game. I would have added at least 3 more cameos.
And this is kind of beta specific. The beta's over. We're moving on to the game upon its release. And when it does release, I believe we're going to have 16 cameos. I think that's the count.
Possibly more. It sounds like they're hinting more, or a long time ago they hinted more, but we'll see though.
Yeah, and that's not to mention that we had the DLC Combat Pack 1. They didn't even show who those cameo character DLCs are going to be as well. So we'll see. There's going to be a lot more cameos, and I'm kind of glad that we're talking a lot about cameos, because a lot of people talk about the point characters so much, and we don't really focus on the different cameos, because your cameo completely changes your game altogether. And I was, when I was watching the combat cast, I was like, dude, like Serena looks freaking dope. Like Serena looks like she is going to be a problem of a cameo character. And on top of the fact that Sindel can buff her cameos, and Motaro also, he has his anti-zoning. Sub-Zero has his anti-zoning, and it's there's a lot of what you said, diversity and quote player expression that are going to come from these cameos, not just your point. Rooflemonger did say one thing that I really, really liked, was he said that you counterpick your opponent with your cameo. You don't counterpick with your point character.
I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, and he makes a very valid point, and I'm glad he said that. I mean, I wouldn't never, I probably would have thought it, like, not thought of that quote, but it's like, okay, if I'm going against somebody who's just zoning the crap out of me, what am I? I'm going to pick either Sub-Zero, Mortaro, because of their because of the mechanics they have that are anti-zoning mechanics, So
and if Motaro had been in the beta, that would probably have been a much better experience, because it looks like if you get a knockdown with your character, those 3 fireballs he shoots lock you down. And if you're crouch blocking a fireball, it looks like, at least from the footage, you can do anything you want. That's from the trailer, by the way. I have not seen the combat cast, but that would have helped. That would have helped a lot. And I think the game is going to be a lot better in release, because we're going to have those options. But we also don't really know what else is lurking underneath the water surface. So there's a lot of reservation right now. I'm not down on the game though, because I think even if I don't like this game, it's going to be so fun to lab. I think training mode is going to be a blast. And I think I'm leaning towards Optimism, because like I said, if you give me a sector missile, it's going to be a different game. This very neutrally check your opponent with low ice and then confirm into the biggest frost combo you have. That is going to change, I think.
It's really funny too. We've talked about this a lot, and most people will disagree with us. So you're saying you pick Li Mei because Li Mei is your favorite character on the entire Mortal Kombat roster. Li Mei is your favorite character. Am I correct?
Second favorite. Well, Smoke technically, but I like Li Mei. I like how Li Mei was handled much better than Smoke was handled in this game.
Okay, so you're picking that character based off of your bias towards that, not based off of gameplay and mechanics and aesthetics like a lot of people would. We were talking about the San Antonio scene, be like, I like Katana because of the fans, but no, you like Li Mei because you like Li Mei, and you're going to stick with that character.
I should also correct that, because that comment is based on a real person. So if he listens to this, he did not ever say that phrase. He'd be like, Temp, what the hell, man? I'm like, I'm sorry, dude. That was an example. You played a very good katana, sir. So I should probably preface that. You just didn't really enjoy talking about the numbers.
Okay.
And no one did. That wasn't unique to him.
Yeah, but that was I mean, I don't know who that person is, but it was just funny that you mentioned that. Yeah. I like Smoke because he's a black ninja that uses smoke. It's something like that. So point I was trying to make is that with I feel that the cameos are just as important as your point character, to the point where I'm like, okay, Serena is my favorite character in the entire game, therefore like I want to use Serena in almost everything. And turns out Serena actually has one of the most like, the strongest abilities of all the other cameos, at least for this type of playing I'm going to do. And the way that Sindel played with Serena in the combat cast just looks like absolutely bonkers, dude. She looks crazy, and she looks like she's going to be an even better, or just, I'm sorry, not better, but just as good for a lot of these, rushdown characters. So say like Smoke or Reptile, like Serena is going to do well with those kinds of, someone who can lock you in the corner. It's going to be freaking fantastic.
And I think when it comes to like
the point I was trying to in the point I was trying to make is that like, just because my favorite character is a cameo, I'm still really happy that my favorite character is a cameo, because that particular cameo has really good mechanics and looks freaking sick. I'm not really too big of a fan of the whole demon form thing. Like I wish they would have just had Serena just stay Serena, but that's just me being petty and picking on aesthetics. But but
I don't think that's petty. I'm not using that assist precisely because of that reason. Like, to me, it's not petty. That's a deal breaker for me. If my character looks stupid, I'm kicking you out to the streets.
Yeah. Yeah. If it was me, the demon form would have looked a little bit different, but I would never have used the demon form at all. I would have just had Serena stay looking like Serena, and that would have been cool. I think that would have been a lot better.
I mean, it's technically canon, but we never saw what it looked like. So to me, I just can't see Tobias creating this kind of design. That's kind of what really takes me out of the immersion when I see that form. But
so, I don't know Tobias personally, but I would imagine to where he would not want that particular character's demon form to ever be shown.
I'm kind of with you. I never needed it to be shown. I never wanted this Vincent Valentine transformation tech. I never thought that was terribly interesting. I like the sort of like the femme fatale acrobatic knife throwing stuff. I thought it was always the cooler part of Serena for me.
Right.
The MKX Serena, kind of what we got in the story mode, is more what I was partial to.
But, yeah, I like that design, and I'm glad they kind of stuck with that design. It's a really, really cool design. I just don't like how I think it's 3 or 2 of her moves. She goes into this Disney looking, this animated, kids.
Yeah,
it's so weird.
Warner Brothers kind of Looney Tunes.
Yeah, dude. It have you, like, if you go to Disneyland and you go to Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, it literally looks like the little devils that are in there.
Yeah.
But anyway, like I said, that's just kind of like petty aesthetics to me. But you are kind of right in that sense, because there were some characters that I did not play because I was just like, dude, I just hate Melina is one of them in Mortal Kombat 11. I didn't play Melina simply because I just did not like the way she looked.
Well, I definitely didn't like the gear for Melina. I think that wasn't exclusive to her, but I mean that's probably one of my biggest worries right now going into the release of Mortal Kombat 12 is that I'm not going to be able to make Shujinko work. I love Shujinko. I was so happy to see him back. It does suck that I got spoiled that he was coming back. He was leaked. That would have been really hype. Man, the leaks really killed a lot of the pre-release hype for this game for me. But it was great finally seeing him, though. That was really cool.
Yeah. It was great. It was great finally seeing him, and he looks really good. He was a little. The only thing I have is that he looked too much like MK11 Shang Tsung. That's the only, like, it was confusing. A lot of people were like, oh my gosh, it's Shang Tsung. I initially didn't say anything during my reaction video because I was like, that looks like Shang Tsung, but Caboose just got a bunch of crap on Twitter. So I don't know if you're familiar with
what he said was reasonable too. I agree with Caboose. I made the same mistake he did, so I don't.
Yeah,
I completely see
a
where
lot
it's
of
coming
people,
from.
dude, a ton of people made that same mistake. I don't want to like hyper focus too much on that, but dude, he got that was way too overhyped, and it was like an honest mistake, and you're really gonna like discredit this is my one little thing, dude. It like little soapbox thing. It's like, dude, if you're really gonna like rip on Caboose for making a simple mistake, that many other people also made that same mistake as well. And then if you're also going to completely discredit him as a true MK fan, even though he spent the past like 15 years creating a channel, sponsoring many competitions, and making a ton of MK content, that's complete crap, dude. No way. You cannot do that. You can't do that. Dude,
Well, those people are not going to like me then, because I am not a true MK fan. I'm a true MK consumer. I pay $70. Don't make my stuff look stupid. That's how I feel about Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
That's always how it is a transaction. This is not a religion. I'm not part of a cult.
Yeah.
I like Mortal Kombat because Mortal Kombat does good things. And if they don't do good things, that relationship alters to that context. That's always, I wouldn't say it's always the way I've been, but that's definitely the way I've been since MKX. I'm like, all right, guys, you're gonna give me something. If you don't give me something, then we have nothing to work with here.
Yeah, I'm not, I'm not gonna, tithe $70 to Mortal Kombat just because it's Mortal Kombat. Like, if I don't feel like the game is worth it, I'm not gonna play it. But that goes with any game. I would agree, because it's like, if Mortal Kombat doesn't do well, and I don't like the way it plays upon, and I'm going to give it a fair shot and everything like that. I'm probably going to give it more of a fair shot than you are. But like, there's Tekken 8, there's Street Fighter 6, dude, there's plenty of other games.
Yeah, that's
Guilty Gear Strive is on season 3 now. So, I mean, like, dude, there's plenty of games out there, dude.
I would say to the people who are upset with Caboose is you have to separate the characters from the product. The way I deal with the characters, or the way I treat the characters, is not how I treat the product. Like, I am very protective of Smoke, and Smoke will always be cool no matter what NRS does. But Mortal Kombat is a video game, and I don't have any loyalty to a video game. This is a business. I'm a consumer, and that's it. There's no cult, there's no religion. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't think Smoke is super sick, and that will always be true. And that's art. You're reviewing art at that point. You're not in the consumer realm anymore. So I think people need to keep those spheres completely separated.
Yeah, it's very true. No, I completely agree. And yeah, I mean, I heard that I have a friend who works for, I won't say what company it is, but it is one of the prevalent, gaming media companies, does news and stuff like that. And they're usually the first ones who, will get invited by, NRS or Capcom and stuff to play those games. But even him, he's just like, dude, it's just video games. Like, they're not that serious. And some people take it just a little bit too far. And, we saw that over the past week. And, is pretty unfortunate and everything. But, it was just like, now we're moving on. Actually, it's the mob is fickle. And yeah, so I don't know. I don't want to continue on it too much.
That's fair. I mean, my heart goes out to him. I thought Khan was Motaro. I mean, I think it's a complete reasonable observation. I love Shujinko. I do not expect every MK fan to remember Shujinko. Even people who remember Shujinko generally don't like Shujinko. I am not the norm in that. I love Shujinko, but I mean, my reasons go very deep into that.
A lot of people don't think of like Shujinko as like, dude, I'm a Shujinko fan, as they are as like a Reptile or Smoke fan. Like, dude, I know so many people who are like, Reptile, Smoke, there are Sindel, dude, and right now the toxic fandom is Jade, where MK11 is Melina. Now it's like the Jade fans. It's so weird. And but Shujinko is going to be interesting as a cameo, because you can take you can take the abilities of your opponent. Not the cameo's abilities. You can take your opponent's abilities.
Well, my theory is that, I don't know this for sure. Did they mention Shujinko at all during the Combat Cast?
Not during. I don't remember.
Well, I don't think they did, because I feel like someone would have mentioned in the gameplay section, but my theory with Shujinko, I don't know if this is true. It's probably not true, but I think one of his assists is going to be the opponent's move. His second assist is going to be his opponent's cameos move. And his third assist is going to be one of your moves. I think that's how they're going to do Shujinko, but that's a lot of work. So that doesn't seem quite as likely. And I hope they don't do that.
It's not impossible. I mean, he could totally do that because the whole premise of Shujinko is the fact that he learned other people's moves. So that's kind of his whole thing.
I just hope he's strong enough to contend. I'm okay like learning or labbing every single matchup in the game if I have to, but I hope he works. It would suck to do all that work and I don't even have an ambush. That would be so lame. Or maybe I have an ambush in the con matchup, but I don't have an ambush in the smoke matchup. That would be really tough, right?
Well, if Shujinko is taking other people's moves, he has to be an ambush.
Well, I think he starts with a move, but I could be wrong. I don't think he steals moves in the match. He might. That would be. He might just
steal one. He definitely takes one.
Yeah, gosh, it's gonna be crazy. I want to see him Mantis as well in Deception. So if he does cool Mantis stuff, that could also be really sweet. I don't know. The beta as a whole, it's ultimately inconclusive because it became very clear to me we are not actually playing MK12 right now. We're playing the illusion of MK12, but this is not really the game. When the game comes out in September, it's not just going to be the Frost meta.
Yeah, and I'm not. This is going to sound. Don't take this the wrong way, audience. Do not take this the wrong way. When Sunday came around, I was okay with not playing the game. I played the game for a couple of hours and then went on to create my review of the beta. And I was okay with not playing it. And the only reason why, it had nothing to do with the game or it had nothing to do with the mechanics. It was simply to the fact that I knew this was unfinished and the final product is going to be significantly better. We just got a taste of what it's going to be. And two, all the characters and besides Lee May, all the characters and all the cameos I had no interest in. So when the final product finally comes out and the cameos finally come out of like the full roster and the full cameo roster, it's going to be, I believe personally, the Temp might feel a little bit differently. Personally, I don't think I'm going to put this game down for a while.
It's funny. I agree with everything you've said, but I don't quite have the neutrality perspective that you have. I think this was a mess up.
I literally said that. I was like, Temp is going to feel differently.
But I think you made a lot of true statements. I don't think you said a single thing that was incorrect. But I think where NetherRealm messed up here was when I played the Guilty Gear Strive beta, I was like, wow, this is so much fun. I'm so sad this is over. When I played the Street Fighter beta, I was like, man, this is so fun. I'm so sad this is over. Until the second beta came out in December, that I'm like, I really don't want to think about SF6 for a while.
Yeah.
Then I when the game came out, I loved it. But
I actually had
that's
more
unfortunate in my opinion. It shouldn't be like that. Yeah.
I actually had maybe even more fun during the MK11 beta, even though it was only like 3 characters, like the first one that we got into. And I believe it was Scarlet, Jade, and who else was in there? It was like
Scarlet, Jade, Baraka. I want to say Scorpion.
Yeah, and because it was those 3 characters, that just got me even more hyped to where I didn't want to put it down. So characters really mattered at that point.
Well, also we were playing real MK11 during the MK11 beta. I feel that was the game essentially, even if it was a little slower than the final release. I feel like we were playing the game that would come out in that April, May whenever it came out.
They didn't.
I don't feel that way about MK12. What's up?
They didn't speed up MK11 for a while. It was pretty slow for a long, long time. So yeah, you're right. But the energy of the game was a lot different at the time because we were coming off of MKX, which was a great Mortal Kombat game. In MK1, we're coming off of Mortal Kombat 11, which was a terrible Mortal Kombat game. So the energy is a little bit different.
That's interesting because MKX, I think, is a good game in retrospect, but I don't think anyone felt that way back in 2019. I think, as a matter of fact, the game was so polarized that people who still played it were called necros. and sort of like affectionately, like it
I
wasn't
mean,
like a derogatory.
because I mean, it did eventually like die out, and I would almost say that what was that one match? It was Sonic Fox versus Tekken Master, I believe,
That was
where
Evo 2015. No, 2016.
yeah, it was. I think it was Sonic versus Tekken Master, and Sonic was playing. I think it was Aaron Black or somebody and then he switched over to Alien and just completely swept the floor with him, and it was like it totally changed the entire meta to where it's just like, dude, it's like you could have just done that the entire time. Why didn't you just do that? And a lot of people are actually looking at. I want to say it was like Paulo Garcia, and they're like, dude, what's the deal? What's the deal with these characters? You know, and they would almost say like that was the icing on the cake for the like not the downfall of MKX, but it was just like at that point people, you know, started to kind of, you know, realize that MKX is dying out. But then we had Injustice 2, which also a lot of people left with a bad taste in their mouth. You know?
Yeah, because eventually I came around on MKX. I did not come around on Injustice 2. I thought Injustice 2 had a very toxic mid range. I felt like offense was very high commitment with like low return. And yeah, it's very similar to MK12 actually, and I felt like I was constantly chasing people. But the difference is I think MK12 will actually be a better game because I think once you get those cameo options, and you can sort of customize MK12 to your experience. I think, like I said, I think having 100 million people play Frost really was not a good look for the game.
Yeah.
And
it was Frost everywhere. It literally, you're correct on that. Every single, like almost like 9 out of 10 games was a Frost cameo.
And to me, I think that was a slip up. I really feel like I should have come out of this beta thinking, man, I wish I could play this game more. I'm so sad that I can't. And I didn't feel that way at all. I was like, man,
yeah,
I am so freaking sick of like random low ice. I am so tired of random low ice.
Yeah. Got my kind of, it's like, oh, I did my, you know, I'm starting my whiff punish. Oh, throw out a low ice. It's like, it's fine. Yeah. So, but it's an unfinished product. I want to come off of it, you know, come off too negative on this because you feel like I walked away from the game bored, being like, this was a great experience. I'm glad I played the beta, but I know this is the way I feel. I know that this is not the finished product, and I can't wait to play other point characters and other cameo characters. And I was bored at the end of the beta, but it because we've seen the other cameos and what they can do. It makes me like hyped for those. It makes me hyped to play Serena, hyped to play Sector, and Cyrax. You know, it makes me hyped to play all those different cameo characters. You have a little bit of a different, you know, like opinion on that.
Well, it's the thing is, I feel like I have an opinion on something that ultimately isn't real anyway. I feel like the beta we played is not even like an actual fighting game. It's sort of like a glimpse of something bigger. And the thing is, it's hard to say anything at all. I mean, I think it's important to say something because I do want to see some things get fixed.
Right.
But the fact is that no one's ever going to play this game again because this meta will never exist ever again.
Gosh, I hope.
Once you get like Motaro in the picture, and once you get like, I don't know, Darius in the picture, it's gonna be a different game. Like this whole like MK12 like Frost edition is gonna get buried in history. That wasn't the case with something like Guilty Gear Strive, where that was the game, even if untuned.
And I don't see Frost being played all that much unless they change some of her mechanics, because like I said, it was like low, you know, ground freeze was pretty much all she had other than her ice ball, and her ice ball was such a long startup that it was actually hard to get out. But yeah, you're right. Like this meta is going to completely die, and as we, you know, actually get the full build, I think that things are going to really spark up. And based off of like, you didn't watch the Combat Cast, huh?
I plan to.
Okay.
It's been a busy work. All this kind of happened during an extremely busy work week, and my brother's been in town.
Right.
This is like my first like.
Yeah. Anyone saw Alice Cooper?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah,
I don't know if you saw that clip, but that was a great concept.
So yeah. Not this combat cast. This combat cast was cool. It was General Shao versus Baraka, and it was really cool to watch Baraka. I was really excited to see the way Baraka plays because he looks so cool, dude. His whole kit is insane. But the combat cast before this one, where it was Smoke versus, I forgot who it was. It was Smoke, Sector versus somebody else. That
I want to say
one,
Lee May.
yeah, it was Lee May, but it was Lee May. Was it Lee May Frost?
I don't remember her cameo.
No. Was it? Yeah, it was Smoke, Sector, and Lee May and somebody else. And I really liked watching that particular set because there was so much going on. It was almost like Marvel versus Capcom 3. Like the cameo was always out. There was always so much going on. And so and that's kind of something I'm really looking forward to in this game. I want the chaos. I want cameos to be out on the screen all the time, So that's something like watching NRS dev matches was actually got me more hyped than the beta did because it showed the potential of what possibly could happen in the future, So I highly recommend watching that and going back to watch that set, and also go watch the Baraka General Shao set because you get to see just like cameos are always on the screen, and it looks way more chaotic than the beta did. The beta I didn't feel looked chaotic at all, mainly just because it was just Frost meta. But yeah,
I have so many ideas. Like, I'm curious, like, if I could just dash in down 4 cameo and just if I'll have that breathing room to really get something started just off of that. Training mode is going to do wonders for this game.
Yeah. And I'm looking forward to that too because like we play Dragon Ball Fighters. There are tons and tons of videos of people making like touch of death videos on Dragon Ball Fighters, and I can see a lot of people just making Mortal Kombat 1 like similar combo videos just in the lab. I can see that totally happening.
Yeah, it's gonna be fun, and I think another great thing about this game is seeing what everyone comes up with among my friends. Like, I want to see what my friends decide to do.
Yeah,
as far as their cameo, as far as their character choice. Because I did not go for like the dab combo when I played Lee May. Not even close. I did one lantern. I was happy with that lantern, and I did my bread and butter. And I did it with like a jump flip kick is how I finished my combo, and I was that works. I'll take that.
Yeah.
I hope to do the cool lantern stuff when the game comes out, but right now, just learning that stuff in the towers was miserable. So, which is fine. I'm not too bent on there not being a training mode because, like I said, this meta is going to get buried in history. This is just not indicative of it.
I hope so. Yeah. So, this is kind of a short one. Do you have any final thoughts before we log out?
Yeah, I guess more than anything, like a word of warning. Really just pay attention to the offensive meta in this game. Really pay attention to what your options are when you don't have an assist. Because I really think that the assist is ultimately going to be a band-aid. The core game still needs to be good. And I don't think the down 1 meta is going to age well. Now, it could be the perfect band-aid. It could be the best band-aid, where ambushes are so strong that if you want to play a rushdown MK12 game, that you will always be able to get those high strings going, assuming you win the footsie battle. If that is the case, MK12 is going to be fine, but I would not let NRS off the hook. If you don't like this down 1 meta, you need to tell them. If you hate the fact that you feel like you lose your turn constantly because of the down 1 rock, paper, scissors, and your high strings feel useless, don't assume, and I know people don't like negativity, but this is important, don't assume that cameos are going to fix all of your problems. The core game still needs to be good, and I don't think diminishing core offense was a good move. Because I really, if you don't hear a single thing I say during this whole episode, please hear me out here. This problem does not exist in other fighting games. In Street Fighter 6, I have a down 1 confirm. In Grand Blue Fantasy, I have a 2L confirm. And heck, even MK9, like with Smoke, I have a back 2 confirm or a 3 down 1 confirm. There's no down 1 meta that shuts that down. This is very much a MK12 phenomenon. So if you like this, okay, cool. I respect your opinion. If you don't like this, I would not give them the benefit. I mean, don't be an asshole, but like, don't assume that cameos are going to solve all your problems. We need to tell them now, because this could really hurt the game in the long run.
Yeah.
So even if beta is going to get lost in history, we may still have these problems come September.
Yeah, and from what it sounds like, what Tyler Lansdowne has said is like, we hear you. And I remember in the past, I'm pretty sure in the last Combat Cast, he actually like said like, we hear your constructive criticism. And Dab said the same thing in the previous episode. He was just like, I told NRS, because he's friends with some of the devs there, and he was just like, I told NRS this, and like, if you tweet about it and if you tell them this, like, they are listening, and they want to listen. So this is definitely something that I feel is probably going to get fixed. And if anything, dude, it's like, look, the stress test, people complain the game is too slow. We want, dash block. We want dash block. We want dash jab, like you were saying. I remember that was in your Discord bio. It was like forward jab, forward jab.
Oh yeah, hey, jab.
Yeah. And I feel like they are actually listening. So I think that is hopefully is something that's going to be taken care of, because you, me, and other people are not the only ones who have been talking about this. And that was my biggest gripe for anything, was that there's just way too many highs. Everything could probably get fixed by just making more of their normals mids, or starting mids.
And I can't stress it enough. This is such a uniquely MK12 problem. This is such a, I mean, arguably this was also an issue in MK11, but again, you do not, in other fighting games, most other fighting games, if you are negative, if your opponent is negative, it is your turn. There's no RPS outside of dragon punches and armor moves. This is such a uniquely Mortal Kombat 12 thing. So I think people need to understand what they're getting into. One of my biggest regrets was not shouting at the top of a mountain, block stun is an issue, buttons are an issue. Because when the first beta came out, everyone said buff the movement, but the movement was always a red herring. It did need to be improved. It did have issues. I don't think the movement was great in the stress test, but it was never the core issue. It was always the block stun and the frame duration. That was always my biggest problem with the game. And I so regret that I didn't emphasize that back in the original Nethercast. I wish I had said, look, movement is a problem, but I don't care. That we need to fix block stun. We really need to fix the way this game feels. If it's faster, great, but the way it feels is the problem right now. And I still feel that way. I still feel like block stun makes punishing so unintuitive in this game. I really hope that changes.
Right. So, but thanks for wanting to do this. This was a lot of fun. I'm glad we got to talk about that, because this was more of a constructive thing for NR. What we would constructively tell NRS, rather than something that, because I don't I feel really good about the game going in. So it's like, these are just the things that would perfect the game, because I already feel like the game is great. I feel like the game is great personally. Yeah, this was more of my negative. Like, I actually feel like I've been too hard on the game, but that's just because of like me, Yeah,
I mean, well, I think it's always important that, again, separate the product from the art, and separate the product and the art even from the developers. Like, I understand the developers are human beings and they're trying their best, right? And this is really a battle of philosophies. So none of this is personal, and I do have a lot of respect for the people making this game, and I think they've done a lot of things right, but we're almost there,
right?
It's also a big question mark. I think that's another important thing. I gave a message to the audience a moment ago. Now I'll give a message to the devs. No one has truly played MK12 yet, at least not from a general public perspective. No one really knows what this game is yet.
Right.
So I could be wrong. It may end up being the case that the down one meta is not only good, but essential, because the assist meta is so oppressive. That may end up being the case.
I hope so.
I think That'd be a good thing. That'd be great because that means I have this amazing assist offense. I have this amazing cameo rushdown. That would be cool, but no one knows though.
And when you watch the Combat Cast, you're going to see that. If you watch the Combat Cast that they just did, you're going to see a lot of that.
Yeah, Motaro is featured, right?
Motaro is featured. Serena is featured, but Sindel, her mechanics have a lot of good things to do with the cameos.
Yeah, I have high hopes for the Motaro lockdown. I think that's going to solve a lot of problems I have right now currently with the game. The Sindel assist, we'll save that for another episode. The assist stealing stuff, I have a lot to say on that. But yeah, we'll backburner that for now.
She's the queen of all cameos, essentially.
Quite literally.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Like she's literally like she commands the cameos. Anyway, all right, guys. Audience, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave a comment down below, and subscribe, of course, trying to get to 5,000. And I will be giving another copy of Mortal Kombat 1 when we hit 5,000, so don't forget about that. So until next time, Shred.
Take care, everybody.